If you're looking to sell your house fast, you're going to need to pay attention to these ideas seriously. Before I share a handful of great ideas that is going to help you sell your house fast in this market or in any market, first I want to give some context about what's happening in the South Florida real estate market today. For example, let's take a look at this first chart. This is Delray Beach as an example. Last November, the inventory of active listings dropped to a bottom of around 365 properties. Since then, it's been an upward move to over 550 properties. So you can see the trend is more inventory, which is more competition and downward pressure on pricing. The next chart I want you to take a look at is an information that just came out about the percentage of home sellers, homeowners, who are now dropping their price here in Florida. As you can see, Tampa Bay, Orlando, Palm Beach, they're all dropping their price. Between 25% of the sellers to 40% of the sellers are now reducing the price of their properties. And last, take a look at this little blurb. I do a weekly e-letter I send out to my subscribers, and I focus this year on inventory. You can see here that earlier this year, South Florida inventory bottomed just below 15,000 properties, but it's been rising fast ever since. Right now, it just passed 25,000 properties for an increase of almost 70% just this year. So, what does this mean? Well, first, if this is your first time to my channel, do me a favor. Subscribe to my channel, hit that bell so you're notified every time a new video drops. People like you are contacting me all the time wanting to know what's happening in Delray Beach. And for sellers, it's more important ever right now to have a grasp on and understand what's happening today, not what happened yesterday. So if that's you, send me a text, drop me an email, give me a phone call, my information below. I would love to speak with you, whether you're a buyer or a local seller, because today's information is the most important information I'll be giving all year. Okay, I'm almost ready to talk about these ideas to help you sell your house fast, but there's still some more context that we need to talk about. And that is what's happening generally about the psychology of our economy. So let's take a look at this first graph. This is the CNN Fear and Greed Report. As you can see, it's clearly in the fear side right now. The stock market has been obliterated this year. The NASDAQ is down 28%. The S&P is down about 17-18%. So people's bank accounts and their investments have lost a lot of money. That plays heavily into the real estate market because now the Fed is raising rates. They did 75 basis points in June. They're going to do more in July. That is putting fear in the people that mortgage rates are going to go higher. So buyers are starting to think, I'm kind of fearing the real estate market as well. So there's a lot of psychology playing into the overall real estate market. Now let's take a look at this next graph. This is the number of housing units sold over the last 15 or so years. And as you can see, over the last decade, the number of houses sold has continued to rise. So the real estate market overall, since 2011-12, has been strong and growing stronger. Of course, last year was a little bit off. We peaked about 500 additional thousand properties were sold across the United States, which is what created this seller's market. There was no inventory with this massive demand pent up, so that's why we see this spike. But overall, the trend, as you take a look at the 12-year history, the trend has been up. So real estate as a sector itself is on solid ground. Now let's take a look at the psychology coming from the buyer's perspective. So buyers this year have been in complete shock of what's happening with mortgage rates. Take a look at this 10-year chart of the 30-year fixed mortgage rate. Humming along, mortgage rates went down in 2021. Now this year they have done an about face. They have ripped higher, putting a pause on the buying market. Buyers are petrified right now of having to pay too much on a monthly basis with their mortgage, along with insurance and other things. So buyers right now are starting to hit the brake pedal and slow down on their buying activity. The next thing that I'd like to take a look at is the rising of prices over the last 30 years. Take a look at this chart. Back in 1992, prices were a lot lower than they were now, but look at the end of this graph. Prices have just gone through the roof. So a lot of buyers are looking at high mortgage rates on top of the peak of a real estate market Whether it's peak or not, I don't know. But right now, the prices of homes have never been this high. So psychology of buyers is, am I paying too much interest for that property? That has a lot of buyers holding off on things right now. And as for the sellers, the psychology for sellers this year is clearly, our price is going to go higher. I don't want to list my house today because I fear that I'll lose out on higher appreciation over the next couple of years. And there's been studies and graphs all over the news talking about how prices, they might not go up 20 or 30% like they did last year in the last couple of years, but they'll still go up 3, 4, 7%. So they think, well, why should I sell now when I still have an upside appreciation to gain in the future? The other fear psychology that sellers have is, with the low inventory market in general, although we see the trend earlier that inventory is going up, overall, if they sell today, where are they going to go buy? So the psychology is, I don't want to sell right now because I might have more money to gain in the future. And if I sell, where do I go? Do I leave Florida and go to Albuquerque, New Mexico? I don't know. But that's a big psychological barrier for the number of listings on the market. Now let's talk about the tips. Now that I put context around the real estate market in general and given the psychology of both buyers and sellers, it's time to give you a half a dozen tips on how to sell your property fast today. And coming in at number one and most important is, you need to price your property for today's market, not what took place 5 or 6 months ago in the frenzy when offers were coming in way over list, when you'd have 50 people at your front door begging to buy your property. Those days are over. Now the market has shifted. The data that I showed earlier is now today's market. Inventory is higher. Buyers are starting to put pause on. And guess what? They're smart. They understand what market value is. And here's the most important information for sellers. The day you put your property on the market, the day that it hits the market, that's the day your property has the most value. After that day, if it's not getting calls, if it's not getting showings, the value tends to erode. Buyers look at it and say, what's wrong? How come it's not selling after 6 days, after 2 weeks, after 3 weeks, God forbid? They are smart. They're paying attention. And also agents will stop showing it because, well, they misprice it, so we'll just wait for them to make a drop. That's a bad strategy. Price your property for today's market. Next up is, as a seller, don't be lazy. It's time right now for you to do the research when you choose an agent, to work with that agent, so you are not lazy that you think, oh, just buyers are going to show up. Those days are over already. We've talked about that. It's time to get rid of yesterday's market and understand that we've entered a new market. That means being lazy is a bad strategy. If you just put your house on the market and think that buyers are going to show up and they don't, well, it's not going to feel good, and then you're going to look back and say, I made the wrong strategy. So don't be lazy. The next, number 3, is don't be in denial. Right now, it's a different market. If you thought your property was going to be priced at this because you could sell it like that a year ago when all your agents were pounding your doors saying, let's sell, 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 you can get the most, well, guess what? It has shifted a little bit. So if you are in denial today and you thought it was here and it's here, there's a gap that you're not going to be happy with yourself, with your agent, or the market, and it's just going to be a bad experience. Don't be in denial. Now that we've gotten past that psychology, let's look at the strategy. Now you've chosen an agent. Now it's time for you to sit down with the agent, do thorough work on understanding what the value of your property is right now today, get serious about getting a number that is not going to be inflated, get a number that is right on point. Now let's sit down with your agent and go over a 10-day plan, a 30-day plan, a 90-day plan. Let's meticulously look at what our expectations are on day 1 through day 10. If any adjustments have to be made, that's fine. But let's have a marketing plan, a strategy that is here to succeed. Work with your agent, get on board, checks and balances, make sure that we start the plan on point and we make sure we follow it throughout the listing contract. And a footnote to this strategy and plan with your agent is, do not start out with any idea of having to start a listing and then lower the price after a few weeks. Get that idea out of your head right now, because here's what happens. 10 days or 14 days later, your agent is going to say, well, we didn't get any activity because of A, B, and C. When you start a strategy of lowering your price, it tells the buyers that something is wrong with your home. Either wrong with the price, or there's something hidden that the buyer can't see, or they're going to be meticulously peeling back the onion saying, what is wrong with this property? Why didn't it sell? So the strategy of just, oh, we'll just lower the price, that is a strategy of failure, and wipe that one clean from your slate from the get-go. The next important point to help you sell your house fast is choose an agent who is very savvy with social media, with YouTube, with other marketing outlets. We can't just rest our laurels on putting your listing on the MLS and waiting for 25,000 agents in Palm Beach County to pick up the phone and say, I've got a buyer. That's not enough. The agent needs to be proactive. They have to be using video. Video is the theme and the conversation that's talked about from all the top coaches throughout the United States with realtors and training agents to become better at what they do. Make sure your agent uses video for all platforms, for social media, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. Make sure they're even doing TikTok. Make sure that the agent you choose is using all of the platforms and technology available, and don't settle for less. So let me ask you a question. Last time you were a buyer 5 or 10 years ago and you were looking at properties on the market, was it a turnoff for you when you saw a property that just didn't look good, the paint wasn't right, or looking at the MLS, the property's on the market for 30 days or 60 days? Did that psychologically change the way you thought about the property, and maybe it was a turnoff, or did it allow you maybe the position to negotiate better with the seller? Leave some comments down below. Let me know what your thoughts are. And while you're at it, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. My information is below, my phone number, my email. Send me a text, give me a phone call. I'd love to hear your comments, and I'd love to see how I can help you out in the future.